The state's mask mandate is set to expire on Monday, January 18. But what about the citywide mandate? And many received a $600 stimulus check from the federal government. But what does that have to do with creating more affordable housing in Minot? And the demand for rapid COVID testing has changed. So too will the hours at Fire Station 1. We'll cover all of that this week ahead. Hey everyone, thanks for joining me for our first ever live This Week Ahead. For those unacquainted, I do a weekly newsletter that covers 3 to 5 things that you should know to start your week here in Minot. For the most part, it's about construction projects, traffic delays, and council meetings. But this winter, we'll probably lift the veil on a lot of local government for you. Now, if you prefer to get your newsletter the old-fashioned way, I get it. Go ahead and sign up at minotnd.org/thisweekahead and we'll slide into your inbox each week. But if you're like me and you prefer a more video version of the consumption of your information, this right here is for you. So with that, let's get into it. This Week Ahead. Now, unless you've completely removed yourself from the news, you may have noticed a fantastic trend as far as our state's COVID-19 infection rate. It's counter to much of the country. It is falling. Unfortunately, we do continue to have North Dakotans dying from this disease that has raced across the globe. But in an overall sense, things have improved the last month and a half. We see that when we compare the Department of Health's COVID-19 risk level map to 2 months ago. It has gone from a scary red to a light orange and gray. This is due, of course, to those falling numbers and mitigating measures. Cases across the state have gone the right direction, a trend that is a very welcome sight to everyone, especially as we see record high case numbers and tragic deaths counts all across the country. Now, given our fortunate trend, the statewide mask mandate imposed by Governor Burgum in November is now set to expire on Monday. However, the city imposed a citywide mandate on October 19th, just before the governor did, and that has an indefinite expiration date. That October declaration states, the mandate will remain in effect until the current state of emergency ends. Of course, to dive into this topic a little deeper, I want to bring in an expert, and that's Mayor Sitma to talk a little bit more in depth on this project. Mayor Sean Sitma joins me now to talk about the citywide mandate as the state mandate is set to expire on Monday. Mayor Sitma, thanks for making time for us today.
Absolutely. It's, I'm sure, on the pressing point of a lot of people's minds, so it's good to talk about it beforehand and maybe take a look at all of the different aspects that are coming into consideration.
Yeah, we want to make sure there's no confusion about the local expectation here. So first off, if the governor does not extend his mandate, which it doesn't look like that's currently the case, past January 18th, what does that mean for us locally?
Well, locally, we do have our local mandate in place that is community-wide, and also the different mandate specific to the public buildings owned and operated by the city of Minot. Anticipation is, with discussions from the governor here just yesterday with the different mayors around North Dakota, there was a lot of support to continue that mandate for another month. The reason being, if we take a look around the country on what is going on outside of the state boundaries, COVID-19 is still a very real issue in a lot of other areas, and there are a lot of people traveling, coming back from places like Florida and Arizona. And while the Binex testing that has been very successful and I think very appreciated within the community, it still leaves the real possibility of seeing a resurgence if we aren't careful. The Adjutant General of the North Dakota National Guard kind of equated it specific back to Minot, back to 2011 when we were fighting a flood. If after the first crest in early June, if we decided the flood fight was over then and just pulled all the equipment and pumps and everything and said, we're good, we wouldn't have had a chance at staving off even saving a portion of the community that we did in Northeast Minot then. the same concept really applies here. While we've got our numbers declining, while we have got a good handle, I think we're very happy on where we were at now compared to where we were at in late November and early December. We don't want to go back to that phase until vaccination gets a little farther down the road. We get into the tier 2 and tier 3 and those at-risk population folks farther along in vaccination. We're really just on the cusp of moving out of tier 1 into tier 2. So there is a lot of support from the different mayors, all of the different communities that were on that call, which represent more than 16 communities and cities around North Dakota, to have the state's mandate another month. Now, if that doesn't happen, likely what we're going to be doing is talking about the citywide mandate with the full council, as it was a full council discussion. When we put it into place, I expect that same conversation to happen at our next city council meeting.
Which actually is on Tuesday this week. We'll get to a little bit more of that later on. But is that your expectation, since it was a full city council meeting in October that decided on the citywide mandate? Are you looking to the full council to set an expiration for whenever that may be for the citywide mandate? Because as the rules are now, it does fall under the mayor's emergency powers.
It does fall under the mayor's emergency powers. I personally, I am going to voice my support on keeping this mandate in place for at least another 30 days. As it's written right now, it expires when the emergency from the state is removed, and that doesn't look like it's going to be happening anytime soon. But I would look to the council for a vote of support on continuing that mandate. While it is in the purview of the powers, it's also in the purview of the full council to make a vote to reverse that. So that's really the reason why I think, even if it's not a unanimous vote, I think a majority vote would help with just that continued support throughout the community. And we've seen we've seen the effectiveness within the mask mandate within the community. That's, I think, without question, it's been exceptionally effective within the schools, that within Minot Public School that had their own mask policy long before the city did, and of course their infection rate was indicative of that. And then when we watched the timetable expand after the mandate came in, not only from the city but from the state, our numbers certainly reflected that as we watched that second big wave really start to retract as people were more mindful. It wasn't just the masks, it was just being more mindful of hygiene, washing your hands and keeping your distance from folks, and all of the different components that really are the key components of fighting against infection from COVID.
So just so we're clear, when the state's mandate expires on Monday, the citywide will continue at least through council, but there's a likely chance that it expands beyond that.
My expectations of whether the governor extends his or not, my expectations is ours would continue for at least another month. That is my expectation.
Okay, and you alluded to this just a moment ago, but I want to get your thoughts on this. From your discussion with public health officials at First District, community leaders, business leaders, the schools, whomever, do you think that this mandate was effective from both the local and the state level?
I don't think it's even a question on whether it was effective, because as we saw and hospitals throughout the state saw, we were and they were really on the brink throughout that high surge in November and December. When you talk to the hospitals, they were really doing their best just to try to even make room for more COVID patients. Those discussions with the funeral homes, the numbers were astounding. And as more folks really took to heart, I think the issues that go along with COVID, we started to see those trends then reverse. I mean, we were on the national news for being the state, or the county, Ward County, with the worst infection rate within the entire country, if not beyond the borders of just the United States. So it absolutely was effective. And I know we're not done with COVID yet. And I think it would be very premature for us to walk it back and suffer a setback. And as we talked before, when we were working towards or into the mandate is there were premises here on why it was important. One, the hospital capacity. Well, we've got that under control. We're still not back to full opening for, the capacities for social gatherings or restaurants or bars. We would hate to see a setback. I know that they have endured a lot of financial and psychological heartache through all of this, and we don't want to see that setback. The argument that the third one was keeping kids in school, in-person learning. But I think the argument that this is some sort of power play, it's really just, I think that's a narrative that emerged out of the national scene. I think everybody can agree we want things back to the way they were. If we can get farther along with the vaccinations, if we can take just a little more time, that really isn't any significant pressure on anyone to substantially change their life. This is a small step that I think that we can take to ensure that we continue on the path to getting back to life after COVID.
And of course, like you said earlier, this is a many-layered approach to that life after COVID. Masking is just one of the several that we have to take.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Now, while I have you here, your State of the City is coming up in just a couple of weeks. Time is moving along pretty fast already in 2021, but it's going to be a little different this time around from your previous State of the Cities. What can we expect when you address Minot on February 2nd?
Well, as you put it, it's going to be different than the previous State of the Cities because it is going to be virtual. Being mindful of the social gatherings, yet even today with our lower numbers, going virtual means a little bit of more versatility. We're going to incorporate, of course, this is going to be streamed for anybody who can watch it, live the night that it airs, or they'll be able to come back and watch it, in replay on social media. But we'll be able to incorporate a little bit more for, I think, the visual side of things, of course, with your help. I think it's going to give us the ability to, I think, dig a little deeper into some of those areas and maybe broaden it a little more to a full overview of what 2020 was, what we're looking ahead for 2021. But again, this is a great opportunity to talk about not only the challenges that we faced in 2020, but those opportunities that are before us as well. And whether a person looks at a challenge, what lies ahead, each challenge also represents an opportunity to overcome that and certainly make us as a community holistically just more resilient and collectively come together more as a community. As we've seen with COVID, the more that we logistically come together, I think in a common theme, we can find more successes in that than we do divided.
All right, thank you again. That's, again, the State of the City coming up on February 2nd. You can find that on all of your favorite social media platforms that you find the City of Minot on. That's at City of Minot. YouTube, it's at cityofminot.nd. Okay, thanks again, Mr. Mayor. Stay well. We'll see you at Council on Tuesday night.
We'll see you then. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, man. Now, speaking of which, the City of Minot offices will be closed on Monday, January 18th, in observance of the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. This will include City Hall, Public Works, Engineering Department, all of that. The regular City Council meeting that is typically held on the third Monday of each month will be moved because of that holiday to Tuesday, January 19th, still at 5:30. You can watch that, of course, live on all of your favorite social media platforms. The Minot Public Library, however, will be open on January 18th. They are open from 9 to 7 p.m. City Transit buses will also run on their regular schedule on the holiday. However, there's not going to be a residential garbage collection on Monday. The next pickup day for those who have the Monday-Thursday collection will be that Thursday, January 21st. The City of Minot landfill will be open from 8 to about noon on that holiday on Monday. And of course, if you have any water service emergencies, residents are urged to call the emergency line. It's 852-0111. All City of Minot offices will actually open again on that Tuesday, January 19th. Now, this week ahead, Binex rapid COVID screening is continuing in the City of Minot at Fire Station 1, but due to a decrease in demand that we're seeing, the hours will be changed this coming week. We'll drop Wednesday testing, but the rest of the week will be pretty similar. Here's what that looks like. Monday screening is from 8 to 2. It's 2 to 7 on Tuesday. No screening on Wednesday. Then back up 2 to 7 on Thursday. Friday, it'll be the morning and early afternoon shift, 8 to 2. And then on Saturday, the testing and screening will be 10 to 2 with no screening scheduled for Sunday. We, of course, will adjust hours if needed. It's kind of a week-to-week thing. But for this week, that is what you can expect. Now, finally, this week ahead, I want to call attention to the latest stimulus package that passed at the end of 2020. This is known as it gave millions of Americans a $600 check. But there was much more included in that piece of federal legislation that will actually help the citizens right here in Minot. First, a massive milestone for flood control, or at least the future of it. That stimulus bill included federal authorization for Phase 4 maple diversion when it was included in the Water Resource Development Act bill. That clears a path to secure a federal funding source that will ultimately help pay for that phase, which is a cost share of about 65% of a $90 million project from the federal government. The next part, that's what we're going to talk about here. The next benefit we received locally from this federal spending bill was an important extension to the National Disaster Resilience Program, an extension of 1 year to spend the entire $74.3 million. Now, this program is a beast, so I'm going to need some help here. I'm bringing in the program manager of our NDR program here in Minot, Mr. John Zakian. John, thanks for making time for us.
I'm glad to do it, Derek.
All right, John, for a program that previously had a shelf life of about 5 years, expiring on September of 2022, which if we don't spend these funds, we lose them back to the federal government. How is adding an additional year actually helpful when there's still so much time left on the clock?
That is a great question, but right out of the box, I do want to give Senator Hoven a great deal of credit. It was his leadership on the Senate side and his stick-to-itiveness in pressing this case, which was not only on behalf of the city of Minot, but believe it or not, 40 other disaster recovery grantees throughout the nation. And it was his leadership with the support of Senator Kramer and also Congressman Armstrong in the House of Representatives that pushed this across the finish line and allowed us to get the 1 year extension. Now, in reality, especially with cities like Minot and their grants, there are multiple projects being funded through the NDR program with its $74.3 million. And when you have multiple projects, especially with a lot of them being construction projects, and especially knowing Minot's kind of fickle weather, like right now we're going through one of the warmest winters I'm aware of. But we can also go through the coldest winters. And then, our construction season is very minimal. This 1 year extension does give us the flexibility to be able to be sure that we most efficiently and effectively utilize all this money to the greatest extent possible to benefit all Minot residents. But at the same time, it gives us the time frame cushion that in event unexpected situations occur, especially like with weather, lack of construction supplies, which does seem to be a prevalent problem now because of COVID-19, that we're not suddenly up against a deadline that we can't meet. So those were the main reasons why this was so important.
Now, there's obviously many aspects to this grant program. You touched on a few of those, but one that has the most interest from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, which is the agency we have to work with because they're the ones that supplied the grant. They focus a lot on affordable housing in our community. Exactly what are we hoping to do with an additional year to secure more affordable housing for Minot?
Well, the two key benefits to getting an additional year, we have a number of current projects under construction, everything from Park South Phase 2 to Blue on Broadway. We also have the family homeless shelter, which is also a critical need. Some people may not realize, although we have some very valuable shelters right now serving the homeless populations in Minot, we do not have a shelter that actually houses full families. So that's why this is so important. All these projects are not only a priority for the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development, it's also a priority for Minot. And that was determined back in 2016 when the unmet needs were identified that allowed the city to get this $74.3 million grant. Now, this additional time makes sure that these major construction projects have sufficient time to be completed in a very complete, thorough in positive fashion. It allows us to address any possible unexpected and, again, unforeseen circumstances that may occur. And in certain programs like the Gap Financing Resilient Home Buyer Program, which helps LMI residents purchase their homes, single family homes, outside of the flood zone, it gives us actually more time to be able to help more Minot residents become home buyers.
So, John, this begs the question, and we hear this sometimes when we talk about NDR publicly. Do we actually need more affordable housing in Minot?
Well, that's a good question, and it is a never-ending debate. But I want to point out it's not unique to Minot. It's an ongoing debate throughout the country, throughout cities and counties and towns, throughout the nation. It depends on the term affordable. Now, we have a lot of good, decent housing in Minot, to the credit of the private sector with developers. And some will say that's affordable. Now, to a middle-income resident, yes, it is affordable. But we also have a low-income population. And a lot of this housing is not affordable, and it's not the fault of the private developers, because obviously they've got to recover their costs. They, on their own, put their own investments in and develop this really quality apartment rental housing in Minot. But they can only go down so low, and otherwise they lose money, and we don't want anybody to lose money. So there is a niche population at the lower end of the income scale of affordability, and there is a critical need that has been repeatedly demonstrated. We right now, through prior disaster recovery allocations from HUD, we currently have approximately 200 units already in operation in Minot. It's like Cook's Court, Sunset Ridge, Fieldcrest. They are almost, and have been for some time, 100% occupied. That tells you that there still remains a critical need. Also, the Minot Housing Authority, which is responsible for what's known as the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program for low and moderate income residents, continues to have a waiting list of more than 200 individuals and families. So there still remains a critical need. So these projects like Park South Phase 2 and Blue on Broadway definitely will meet a need in this city.
Now, one thing that you pointed out to me when you came on, and it shocked me, and some people still don't understand, is the threshold for LMI is a lot higher than a lot of us really think. What is that on the federal standard of what low and moderate income housing or would actually qualify?
So low and moderate income housing is established annually by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. It's based on census data, as is so much of what we live by in terms of database decisions. And it changes every year. And it ranges from a single person household up to a family of 6 or more. And the income levels are not as low as some people think. For instance, right now, and I'm going from memory, but for a typical family of 4 to qualify as low and moderate income and to be eligible for this type of housing that we're funding, or to be eligible for the Housing Choice Voucher Program, the Section 8 program, the income is $65,000. Now, that may seem like a lot, but when you think about the cost of living, the family size, it is a critical need to make sure that they have available rental housing that they can afford.
And that's part of the mission with the NDR program. But there are so many different pieces and aspects of this program of NDR. Thankfully, we get that 1-year extension. But quickly, John, we have a lot of success stories that have already been accomplished on our timeline dating back from 2016, 2017 when we got the grant. Can you give me the project that is probably your favorite and tell us why?
Well, I think favorite that's an apt description, but I think the one that I am most proud of being part of is what's known as the Resilient Home Buyer Gap Financing Program. This is a unique program. I'm not aware of it being used anywhere else in the country through disaster recovery funds. we have partnered with the North Dakota Housing Finance Agency to provide Minot residents who meet the low moderate income standards to, in many cases, buy their first single family home. And as we speak today, we have passed a significant benchmark of having done 30 of these projects. This means that we're not only supporting the real estate industry, but we're also providing Minot residents with quality, safe housing outside of the flood zone. Now that we have 2 more years, a little more than 2 more years, thanks to the extension, I am optimistic we're going to continue to be able to accomplish placing more residents in homes and probably get to past 50.
I knew that was going to be your answer, actually, John. It is a great program. 30 home buyers getting assistance with their first home is an impressive feat, considering that exceeded what your expectation and your goal was for this program.
You want to hold on a second? Are you hearing Bailey?
Yeah. I'm assuming the UPS is dropping off a package for you. That's what I'm guessing.
I would say that's a very yes, so that's one of the 2 beagles.
What are their names? What are your beagles' names?
Bailey and Augie.
Bailey and Augie.
Yeah, male and female.
I can say that they've made cameos in a lot of meetings between us. So.
Yeah. Yes, that's true.
This is the ways of virtual life in 2020 and 2021, John. We're going to leave this in so people can enjoy that.
Sounds good.
But yeah, the program I knew was going to be a favorite because it has exceeded expectations. And now with an extra year, there's probably a little bit more we can do to help people get their first home in our community and help really stand up our housing market quite a bit.
My original goal, which would have met a benchmark of performance to keep HUD satisfied, was 20, and that was going to be through this year, 2021. So at the end of 2020, we'd hit the 30 mark. So we far exceeded our goal, and we still have funds available. There is still considerable interest. I also want to credit both the financial community and the real estate community in Minot, because they really embrace this program. One of the reasons why this is a success story, and one of the reasons why I'm proud of it most of all the projects, is that it really has brought together the community, including the private sector, and it really has demonstrated that when everybody works together and supports an effort, there really can be positive benefit for the city.
And while we're on this subject, if people want to take advantage of this program, contact your lender.
You can either contact your lender or contact your real estate broker. Both groups, both professions right now are fully conversant on this program, and they've become our biggest advocates for it. So please, yes, if you have any interest, don't go in thinking, well, I'm not qualified. You won't know you're not qualified or qualified until you make that inquiry and we check. And some people I've come to find out were surprised they were qualified. But that goes back to the point you made early on, that when people hear low and moderate income, they don't realize that the income levels in North Dakota and in Minot are much higher than people may realize. So a lot of people may think they're not qualified, and then they'll find out they are qualified.
All right, so check in with your broker or your lender, see if you can qualify for that if you're looking for maybe your first home, resilient home. One of the many key aspects and important pieces we're trying to do with the National Disaster Resilience Program. John, thanks for taking some time to speak with me on this.
Oh, thank you. I enjoyed the opportunity to chat.
All right, thanks, John. Have yourself an enjoyable weekend now. Now, that's John Zakian, Resilience Program Manager, and thanks to the federal extension passed at the end of 2020, he'll have to call Minot home for at least one additional year, keeping him here until 2023. Thanks again, John. All right, that'll nearly wrap us up for the first ever This Week Ahead video series. Thank you for watching. But before I go, I want to encourage you to send us your questions through our mailbox. Any questions you have, send those questions directly to the info@minotnd.org email address with the subject line of mailbag. Ask us anything you would like to know about your city, our operations, our local government, maybe obscure things you see that you're not sure what they are. We'll do our very best to answer your questions here each and every week. But until then, thanks for joining me. And of course, enjoy This Week Ahead.